Hey, what's up, guys? We're back, and I'm deciding to restart this series because it's been a while since I played it, and to be honest, some episodes I wasn't really happy with, so we're gonna re record and get back to where we were. I know that we were on the part with the Ferris wheel and the carnival and everything after the puppet attacked. Weird sentences, yeah, but we're gonna get back to that, but I am restarting. With that said, there we go. It was a winter's day 8 years ago. That solemn morning when she understood the value of a life for the very first time. Her home was nestled on the side of a mountain. Around it was nothing but inhospitable wilderness. She had no neighbors or childhood friends to speak of. Things like traveling to school or playing outside were more trouble than they ought to be. Indeed, with its pure water and bright stars, it was a place rich with memories, both frustrating and halcyon. That was only during summer, though. Winters in those mountains were extremely frigid, each morning more severe than the last. Her father would drive her to the train station after waiting 10 minutes for the engine to warm up and the iced over windows to clear.
キーを回してきてくれるかい
Mind starting up the car for me? Her father would savor his morning coffee, leaving her to venture outside and rev the engine. Out the front door she would go, traversing the garden with icy breath until she reached the old sedan. As always, she inserted the key, then started the ignition. The engine rumbled to life. Just as she proudly finished that humble task she'd done so many times before. A shrill scream pierced the air. She knew, even though it wasn't human, that feeble sound was a cry of agony. A few moments passed. Her father came out and opened the hood of the car. Creaking fan belts. Oh yeah, I forgot how morbid this beginning is. Oh my goodness. A monstrous looking engine. And something that didn't belong. There was a cat, a mother by the looks of it, and her two kittens. The three cats had been huddling for warmth in the engine's compartment. The mother cat was missing its head. One of the kittens had been mangled beyond recognition by the engine belts and surely died instantly. The other kitten, its face half covered in blood, painted faintly. It desperately clung to its mother, or rather, the chunk of meat that had been its mother, with the last bit of life it could muster.
かわいそうに
Poor things. Her father lamented their plight. The previous night had been especially cold. After he had returned home yesterday, the cats must have snuck under the hood, drawn by the warmth of the engine. They had slept next to the engine and awoken to a storm of spinning belts. Cars in the 80s were not sealed particularly well, so this was not unheard of.
いいんだ
It's okay.
が悪いんじゃないんだ
It wasn't your fault. Her father's voice seemed distant. She could only make out the small tuft of the kitten's gray fur. The rest of it was caked in the blood of its mother and brother. I can see its skull. The fragile life of a speckled kitten. Trembling and possibly blind, it continued to nuzzle against its dead mother's chest.
待ちなさい
Wait! She took the kitten into her arms and ran deep into the mountains to her grandfather's house. Was it because she was overcome with regret? Or was it the shock of grief? Years later, she still wasn't sure. Fighting back the welling tears, she burst into her grandfather's workshop. Her grandfather was a magician who could do anything. She had never seen magic. She knew that magic was a fantasy straight out of fairy tales, but so was her grandfather. She had to find him. He was the only one who could help. I suppose you want me to alter the kitten's fate. The cave-dwelling magician said indifferently. This kitten needs our help, she pleaded. Whether it was a simple task or a Herculean labor, her grandfather would not say. He simply granted the girl's childish wish, like a machine. Oh no, the girl said. Yeah, I don't like the looks of this room. Before she knew it, however, she was holding a tiny corpse in her hands. Its fur was cold. The warmth of life had left its body, and the tears she had fought so hard to hold back poured from her eyes. Regret spread through her chest like an endless gray sky. We were too late. Some things cannot be undone. Her mind struggled to come to grips with what had just occurred. The last 10 minutes were total blank. Who she met, what she had known, it was all as if it never happened. The only thing she was sure of was that life, once extinguished, can never return. Is somebody there? That day, it was her mistake that gave birth to me. Indeed, whatever occurred that day, it was a day of nostalgia and longing. This is the fairy tale of 8 years ago, the day they first met, that no magic can ever bring back. Arrogant, greedy, and able only to destroy, I must be a wolf. I don't have regrets. There's no looking back. If my pride has left you behind, my sincere condolences. But at any rate, I suppose it's my fate to die at the hands of Little Red Riding Hood. One strange one, as in Chapter 1. I love the rain so much, oh my goodness. It was a quiet morning. From her bed, she could see the sky was an ashen watercolor gray. The thermometer displayed 43 degrees Fahrenheit, a rather unforgiving temperature for November. Her stomach woke her up with a growl, pathetically reminding her that she had completely missed breakfast. But lazy mornings like today's were, for her, a blessing. Hey, they always are, I'm telling you. It was already well past 8 in the morning. On any ordinary weekday, tardiness would be unavoidable, but today, classes were canceled in commemoration, of the school's anniversary. Gratefully, she had every intention of taking it easy for the first time in ages. Outside the window was a gloomy gray, and it reminded her more of evening than morning. It wasn't a pleasant morning by any stretch of the imagination, but having been up all night until just 3 hours ago, she couldn't care less about the weather outside. All she cared about was more sleep. As long as she could spend her morning in bed, what was happening outside was of no concern to her. She shut the curtains, then closed her eyes and tried to let her sleep reclaim her.
せめてあと2時間ぐらいは凡
I'd
庸
like
な
a
夢を
nice
見ていられ
uneventful
ますよ
dream for
う
2
に。
hours, thank you. Blissful slumber found her soon enough. Her consciousness faded. However, her simple request would be mercilessly refused. A faint but shrill sound lingered in her ears. It was the unmistakable ring of a telephone. Much to her chagrin, her eyes popped open out of habit.
こんな日に限って。
Oh, come on, why today of all days? The telephone was situated in the foyer on the first floor. Answering it meant walking down a 30-foot corridor and going down the flight of stairs. In her sleep-deprived state, that distance seemed somewhere between incredibly far and astronomically far. The phone's insistent ringing continued. She knew the caller would eventually give up if she ignored it, but she chose to fight the urge.
アリス出ないの？
Why doesn't Alice answer it? She thought her housemate would get it, but she soon had to abandon all hope. The realization struck that her housemate did not have the day off from school and was likely in class at her prestigious little hilltop academy. The caller proved incredibly persistent. That persistence made the volume of the ringing seem even louder.
もうせっかくの安眠を。
I'm trying to sleep here. She was left with no choice but to get up, throw a top on, and leave the room. God, it's cold. She rubbed her hands together to warm her numb fingers. The mansion's heating system was inadequate, to say the least. You better not be complaining, girl. You in that mansion. I mean, look at that corridor right there. Look at that. I can't even tell what that is at the end of the hall. Is that like a fireplace or another picture under that picture? Like, which meant that winter was the very worst of uninvited guests. Never more so than on a dreary morning as this, when one didn't need to use a thermometer to know how cold it was. The mansion sat in the mountains and was surrounded by dense forests. Winter always arrived here first, before moving on to nearby towns. The robotic ring of the telephone reverberated throughout the long hallway. The mansion's furnishings had been so perfectly maintained that it made the place feel unlived. It seemed lonelier than it did splendid. Coupled with the dreary morning, it could have passed for a haunted house.
ま、幽霊屋敷そのも
It
のだ
is
け
a
ど、
haunted house, I suppose.
だいたい2人で住むに
It's too
広す
large
ぎ
for
るもん
just the
こ
two
の
of
家は。
us. She counted more than 30 rings since it first began. The caller either had a lot of free time on their hands or had a good understanding of the house's circumstances. She had a strong hunch that it was the latter. The window above looked out onto a gloomy sky. She hastened to catch the unrelenting ring in the act as soon as possible. though she had a feeling that her happy morning might come to a close the moment she caught it. It was here that the series of incidents began. Apologies for the lack of romance to this tale, for whether it be objectively true or merely supposition. It is always from gloomy and unassuming beginnings that extraordinary events are set into motion. Below that view. Oh my goodness. She got that view. Which on the holy night? The rain had subsided somewhat by the time she reached the school gate. Sunlight seemed to be playing peekaboo behind the clouds in the distance. It looked like it might be cleared up by early afternoon.
と言っても、私には
Not
関
that
係
it
のない
has
話だ
anything
け
to do
ど。
with me, though. The weather reflected her luck. On top of being forced out of the house at such an early hour, she had to suffer through a winter rain. I'm getting a bad feeling about this. The sinking feeling she had only grew as she passed through the entrance and headed inside. She didn't encounter any other students along the way, nor did she see anyone taking part in club activities either. The reception desk to the faculty room simply read, faculty closed. The school had given all of its students the day off, except those explicitly summoned, like her, a fact that irked her more and more as the minutes passed. She opened the door to the faculty room and headed toward the desk she had visited a number of times before. The man at the desk wore a plain shirt and suit that were nonetheless neatly pressed. Slim frame glasses adorned his face, giving off a amicable yet cunning air. The mild-mannered image this mid-20s man presented clashed with the cigarette he smoked. He didn't appear to have noticed her yet.
Yamashiro sensei.
Mr. Yamashiro. She closed the door with a bang. Showing no response to the sudden sound, I said Mr. Yamashiro. Mr. Yamashiro, there we go, lifted his head.
Yeah. Ohayo.
Hey there.
Aozaki-kun.
Good morning, Miss Aozaki.
要件は聞いてい
I
るかな
guess this means you got the call.
はい。
Yes,
1時間前
they
に
called
自
me at
宅で
home about
事
an
前
hour
に
ago,
何の
out
相
of the
談もな
blue.
く。
Having graduated from this high school himself, Mr. Yamashiro was not much older than the rest of the students. For that reason, the students preferred him over the other teachers. He always had something interesting to talk about and kept conversations casual. In fact, he seemed more like an older student than a teacher, but she, unfortunately, didn't share her fellow students' fondness for him. She was of the opinion that teachers should come across as more austere, like an iron fist that could inspire both love and hate in equal measure, not a buddy to joke and pal around with. He was the exact opposite of how she felt a teacher should be. It was only natural that her manner towards him would be forced and unfriendly. Not that she'd ever been wired to make friendly small talk.
はあ、今日もご機嫌斜めみたいだね、君は。
それは先生の気
You
の
must
せい
be
です。
imagining it.
今日だけ
I'm
特
like this
別
every day.
という話ではありませんから。
The matter-of-fact answer perfectly matched the displeasure displayed on her face. Her bad mood from having to get up early and the tiredness of staying up late must have collectively made her look positively adversarial. Oh my goodness. Adversarial.
そうならいい
If
ん
you
だけど
say
ね。
so. I just go
彼にはそう
easy.
辛く当たらない
Just
で
go
くれ
easy
よ。
on our guest, okay?
僕らじゃ
To
正
be
直
honest,
どう
I'm
扱
not
っていいか
completely
わからな
sure
いとこ
how
ろ
to
もあ
deal
る
with
し。
him just yet.
先生、
About
その
that,
件ですけど、
do you want to tell
私
me what the hell
まだ
was going
詳しい
on?
話を聞かされてい
Because
ない
I
のです
have
が
no clue. As Mr. Yamashiro met her piercing eyes, he finally understood the reason behind her tone and slowly put out his cigarette.
電
Let's
話じゃあなん
start
て
at
聞
the
いたの？
beginning. What did they tell you over the phone?
転入生の紹
Just
介をす
that
る
I'd be
とだ
introduced
け
to a
です。
transfer student.
理由も
They were a
脈絡
little
もない
hazy
説
on the
明でし
rest
た。
though. One of Mr. Yamashiro's eyebrows stood up, impressed with the brevity of her answer. He could see that she was angry, not because she had been called to school on her day off, but because she hadn't been told why she was here. Mr. Yamashiro chuckled sympathetically.
先生、これが笑い
If
話
this
な
was
の
all a joke
そ
to
ろ
you,
そろ帰っていい
perhaps
で
I
しょう
should
か。
just go home.
いや、ご
Wait,
めんごめん。
wait, I didn't
謝
mean
る
to
ね。
laugh. This is not
冗
a
談じゃなく
practical
て
joke.
真面目な話なん
We
だ。
could really use
ちょ
your
っと
help.
君の手を借りたくてね。
本当に
So
転
there
入生
really
の
is
問
a
題は
transfer student.
うん。
Yes,
訳あ
but
りというか
he has,
難しいという
how
か
should I put it? Difficult circumstances.
彼宗十
His
郎君
name
というんだ
is
けど
Sojiro,
ちょっと
and
いろいろ
he's a
とずれ
bit,
ていてね
well,
僕らが案内してあげるより
so
同
we
世代の
thought
君の方
someone
が
around the
適任だと
same
思ったん
age
だ
would be best suited to show him the ropes. She threw him an unamused look. It was negligent of them to be pushing teachers' duties on her, but she did wonder how exactly this transfer student was peculiar. Maybe he meant the student had behavioral problems. It was difficult somehow. But peculiar? She didn't have the slightest idea what that meant.
ずれてるなんてそう使
You
わない
don't
表現
hear a teacher call someone that every day. She had her doubts, but swept them aside for now. This wasn't the time to get distracted by more concerns. The fact remained that this conversation was all the peculiar she could handle, and she needed more information. She was already beginning to fantasize about saying no and curling up in her warm bed at home.
一つ質問がありま
I
す
have a question.
何？あ、
Yes?
学年は君と同じ
He's
2
a
年生
second
だ
year
よ。
student like you.
性格
He's
は
well
落ち着きがあっ
behaved
て
and a good
人の話
listener.
をよく聞
He's
くタイ
not the
プ。
most energetic
裏を返せ
individual,
ば覇気がないとも
but
取れ
that
る
just
けど、
means he'll be
そ
easier
れ
to
なら
get
それで
along with.
付き合いやすいだろ。青崎くんとはクラスは違うけ
He's
ど、
not in the same
仲良くな。
homeroom class as you, but I'm sure you'll get along just.
そういったことは本
I'll
人
be
から
the
直
judge
接
of
聞きま
that
すし
when I
測り
actually
ます
meet him.
そうではなくな
And
ぜ
none of
私
that
なんでしょ
answered
う
my
か
question. Why me? Though her tone was still stern, it was clear that she was willing to cooperate. She had decided to put her feelings of dissatisfaction aside and focus on the task at hand. Forcing herself to act empathetic in spite of her self-absorbed nature was something she was used to. Paradoxically, this force of will was also the reason teachers put so much faith in her. To a point. At times, that strength shattered expectation, and on those occasions, they were left with no choice but to treat it like a natural disaster and weather it until it happened. That was how Mr. Yamashiro had come to deal with her as over the past year.
もう一度だけ聞きます
I'll ask
山
you
城
one more
先
time, Mr. Yamashiro.
生それで
Why does it
な
have
ぜ
to be
私
me?
なんでしょうか
Pressured by a question without a clear yes or no answer, he answered.
うん、それはね。
About that.
別に青崎くんが先生方に敬遠されているのと同じぐらい信頼されていて、学校のためなら教師も生徒も一緒くたに切って捨てる鉄の生徒会長だからじゃないよ。
それ以外に
I can't
こんな呼
imagine
びつけを
any
受け
other
る理由は
reason
な
you
いと
call
思い
me.
ますけど
Her eyes did nothing to hide her disbelief as she glared at him. Strength far beyond that of an ordinary 17-year-old girl, coupled with the youthful beauty of one. Mr. Yamashiro let slip a genuine smile, admiring the miraculous balance of qualities.
いや、
I
責務
mean,
だけでいいなら
I'd
僕
handle
が
it
やってるさ。
myself if it
この
was
人
just
選に関
about
し
your
ちゃ
obligation.
教師や生徒会
But
長
who
といった
gets
役
this
職に
job
関
has
係ないよ。
nothing to do with whether they're a teacher or on the student council.
なんていうか、
I just
こんな
felt
頼
that
み
you
を損
were
得
the
抜きで
only
聞いてくれる
one
のは
who would
君だ
entertain
けだ
this
と思っ
kind
て
of a
ね。
request without
適
needing
任
to
ですか
weigh
ら
all
と
sides.
強く推薦したわけ。
That's why I insisted to be you. In other words, he knew she wouldn't say no.
山城先生
Mr. Yamashiro.
うわ、怖っ。
Oh dear.
もう
Would you stop
睨まない
glaring at me
睨まな
like
い。
that already?
言ったろ。
At least put
僕
on a
にはとも
smile
か
for your
く
new
彼には笑顔でっ
schoolmate.
て。とまあ、
Look,
納得
if
してく
you're
れたな
agreeing to
ら
help,
すぐに移動
we
しよ
should
う。
go see him.
もうずいぶん待たせ
We've
てしま
already
っている
kept
から
him
ね。
waiting long enough as it is.
それと、雨の中
And
ご苦
because
労
you
様。
braved the rain to
帰り
get
はもち
here,
ろん車で送るよ。
I'd be happy to give you a ride home. Mr. Yamashiro stood up gracefully. I'm good, thanks, she replied before turning and walking out of the faculty room. He had been waiting for about an hour. While he did, the rain shower lightened into a drizzle. His mind wandered as he listened to the sound of the raindrops. Raindrop, drop top, look at the bucket of hot box. Okay, I'm done. Okay, I'm sorry. The room was filled with neatly arranged rectangular tables. He was the only one there. Quite some time had passed since he had been brought to this room and asked to wait. Even the best behaved student might have grown dissatisfied or anxious with his situation by now, but the boy stuck to his spot like a scarecrow. He was chilled to the bone. It was the end of November, and the low temperature in the morning had marked the start of winter. The room was not much warmer. The heater hadn't been turned on. Either he missed the teacher telling him to turn it on, or he'd never seen one in his life. He breathed lightly on his freezing fingers as he aimlessly surveyed his surroundings. This dreary place was apparently a meeting room. The other students might have considered it a wonderful place to meet, but to him, it was drab and overly spacious. It was a lifeless place that reminded him of an airy cave. Stuck in this cold room with absolutely nothing to do, his mind turned to what they wanted to discuss. Unable to come up with a solid answer, he returned his attention to the sound of the rain. The rain hardly resembled the rain in the mountains, though he could still recognize it, barely. Its smell and sound were harsher, but at the end of the day, rain was still rain. So even this world, alien as it was, could have something in common with the mountains. That trivial detail perked him up a little. He liked how the town looked soaked in rain. Naturally, he preferred sunnier weather, but he liked rain in its own way. The fog from the rain had soaked up the scent of the soil and reminded him of home. It was at times like these that he was able to numb the anxiety the city gave him. But then he let out a discouraged sigh. How pathetic. He'd already been here 2 weeks, and thoughts of his hometown still made him sad. Perhaps feeling that he was being unfair to his new life, he composed himself and continued to wait patiently. As if having a passion for distractions, his attention returned to the sound of the rain once more. Waiting like this didn't seem to be particularly hard for him. He quietly endured the numbing cold and the hour alone with calm, deep breaths. As the saying goes, good things come to those who wait. Alrighty. I think this is a outstanding and good place to end it. Yes, sir. It's pretty late, and I have to go beddy bye because I work tomorrow. I really appreciate you for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Have a good night, have a good day, have a good morning, and peace!